What if the biggest barrier to your business growth isn't the market or competition, but your own transformation? The transformation process is the mental and strategic journey every entrepreneur must undergo to become more valuable in business and in life. As a CFO consultant who's been in the game for 10 years, I've seen firsthand that technical skills and strategies only go so far. True breakthrough comes only when owners transform themselves. In today's session, we'll unveil a 5 stage transformation model that can turn an overwhelmed business owner, maybe like yourself, into an irreplaceable leader. Stay tuned to learn how to scale yourself so your business can scale too. And by the end of this, you'll see just why your personal growth is the key to unlocking high profits and outsized impact. So let's start with what is that transformation process? Now, the transformation process is simple, a 5 stage model that I've come to know and understand through my own learning. It's very simple. You start with exposure, knowledge, wisdom, and then understanding. Wisdom and understanding. The last step is revelation. Let's go through each of those and break it down so you can get a cool understanding. So, exposure. What is exposure? Exposing yourself to new ideas and new thoughts, new truths, new falsehoods, or new information. You can get this through reading books, through listening to podcasts, to traveling, to just expanding your horizon, exposing you to all types of information. That's the first step. The next step is knowledge. Knowledge is actually the accumulation of truth. So, in the process of exposure, there's a whole bunch of things out there. There's truth, there's non truths, right? But knowledge is accumulating and finding those truths, and it sets the stage for what our next step is. That next step is what we call wisdom. Do you know what wisdom is? Wisdom, according to Hebrew terminology, is actually practical skill and moral insight. So it's the action that is taken based off of the truth. So it's applied truth. That's wisdom. Once you've been able to apply your truth, which is the actions, right? You unlock another stage, which is understanding. Understanding is simply the feedback you get from wisdom. It is literally the byproduct of action. Now, understanding has a unique quality because it actually speeds up the whole feedback loop. It speeds up the process from exposure, knowledge, wisdom, and then back to understanding. Now, the fifth step in this transformation process is where all the magic actually happens. And in this step, it is called revelation. What is revelation? Revelation is the essence of creativity. It's drawing connections from seemingly unconnected elements or things, bringing them together in such a way that it makes you dynamic. It makes you and what you do dynamic. Revelation is the goal of the transformation process because without revelation, you cannot reach transformation. So, what is your goal? How do I get through that process? You know, the cool thing is that all of us are going through this transformation process, whether we know it or not. Some of us are getting stuck at certain stages. Some of us are actually getting to the end and experiencing true transformation. So, why do you even care about this? Why should you even be focused or concerned with transformation? The reason is, as a business owner, right, you want to be valuable. You want to become more valuable in the marketplace. You want to be more valuable in your home, in your community, and out in the world. Because as if you've been listening to me, you would have heard me say that, the business is a journey. And it's not only a journey, it's a journey to become more valuable and to exchange that value. The more time you spend becoming more valuable, the more you can exchange that value for money, whatever currency. And going through the transformation process is the exact process you need to increase your value in all arenas. And you say, okay, who should actually do it? It's you. You as a business owner. If you have any dream of growing and scaling your business from where it is to where you're going, some of you are trying to get to your first 7 figures or 6 figures. Some of you are trying to get to your first 7 figures, and you're trying to figure out what is the gap between where I am at 500,000 and I'm at 999,000. Or maybe you are just trying to earn your first dollar and you're trying to figure out, how do I get to the next step? And it's actually not conventional wisdom. Transformation process was revealed through those who have been through the process. We actually understand that the gap from where you are to where you're trying to go, even in business, even all the technicalities, is hinged on this one principle: getting through that transformation process, getting to revelation. Did you know there's some points I wanted to bring up when going through that process, but we'll talk to it again. So now you know that you know what the transformation process is, and you know why you need to utilize it so you can increase your value. But how do you actually implement it? Like, okay, I understand those steps, but how? What can I do today to implement transformation into my life and to pursue it further? Well, you can start off by starting with the exposure process. Start asking yourself, who am I being exposed to? What information am I listening to? What podcasts am I hearing? What books am I reading? And the steps you can take right now is to unfollow and unsubscribe to all those unproductive media, all of the unproductive information, all of the unproductive experiences that you are exposing yourself to. Then begin to subscribe and follow those that are productive. So the question follows, okay, so what is productive? How do I know that this is productive and is not productive? It's very simple. It's easy, actually. You just observe what you're gaining from it. Are you getting truths, principles, instruction, and inspiration? You need those 4 things to determine if something is productive. Is what you're hearing, what you're reading, is it true? Does it lead you and establish you principles? Does it teach you instruction? And does it inspire you to actually take action? Does what you watch or listen to take you through the transformation process? Does it actually walk you through and get you to the end? If not, you may judge it as unproductive. Now, it's not just the information, not what you just exposed to. Sometimes it's even us. Because after you've been exposed to all the information, there's so much information out there, right? The next step is acquiring the truth, accumulating the truth. So your ability to accumulate the truth first establishes the quality of what you're being exposed to, right? But then the next step is that knowledge. To get to knowledge is funny, because I want to warn you, through this process, most people actually get stuck at the knowledge stage. Most people are so exposed to so much information. They listen to podcasts every morning, every drive to work. They read books 40, 20, 30, 10, 30, whatever your number, but they read infinite amount of books. And they actually believe that accumulating that knowledge or those truths means that they're actually learning. It's not true. You're actually not learning by accumulating so much information, so much knowledge, because those who know, the gap between knowledge and learning, which is understanding, is wisdom. And what do we just say wisdom is? Wisdom is the skill to take practical action. It's action, it's applied truth. So we know that the difference between knowing a thing and learning a thing is the action that you've taken towards that thing. If you're not taking action, you truly will not you will truly not know the thing that you are learning, that you are hearing. I mean, how many times, I mean, I'm victim of this. I'm even talking to myself about this. How many times am I watching a a basketball game, football game, or whatever game, and I critique and I'm like, man, why didn't he just pass the ball to Steph? Why didn't he just run the same play twice? Why didn't he just go into the post and lay the ball up? Why is Anthony Davis still not playing center? Right? But many of us don't have never been in that experience, don't actually play the game. We dream about the game. We daydream about it, about what we could have done. But there's a gap between knowing what you could do and actually figuring out how to do it. And those who are doers really understand what I'm saying, because there's a level of understanding that can only come by doing. And when you understand what that is, when you do the thing, you actually, even the advice, the critique, and the coaching that you give completely changes. You're no longer on the sideline. You're actually a doer. So I want to warn you, most business owners get stuck at this process. But you need to do whatever you got to do to get up and actually do the thing and apply those truths. You know, that's the reason why many of us actually need like inspiration or to be pushed, right? Oftentimes if we don't have anything that's any external or even internal inspiration in some way to push us to do something, we get stuck, we get complacent. You know, the hardest part about doing is actually getting started. That's the biggest hurdle and the biggest hill you've got to climb. Many of us get stuck there. So that's why we need, depending on what you expose yourself to, it can lead to you actually having the power and ability to take action that's needed. Sometimes your friend who loves you needs to come over and shake you up a little bit. Like, come on, bro. You've been talking about this thing for so long. You've been saying that I'm going to post content online. You've been saying that you're going to release that course and build out your sales funnel. You've been saying you're going to hire another admin or executive for so long. You've been saying you're going to remove the all the hats you're wearing and actually start delegating and becoming something more and taking your business to the next level. You've been saying all that. And now your friend is coming, he's got to shake you up and say, look, no more talking. Let's just do it. Do the simple thing. Apply what you already know to do. I say this often, that a lot of our understanding and the revelation that we receive that I'm talking about usually is not coming from always brand new information. It's information that got stuck in that transformation process. So we get a deeper revelation or deeper understanding of it, and it allows us to it pushes us forward further. So don't be like most people who get stuck at knowledge. Do something about what you know. Now, let's talk more specifically about your business. Last week, and for those who follow me, I've been talking about this concept, this formula that I believe is a key to scale all businesses. It doesn't matter what industry that you're in, it can scale every business because it makes business simple. It breaks it down into a formula, and the formula expands into logical departments. What's that formula? It's the offer minus your fulfillment minus management times IT, or we're going to call it AI, times HR, human resources, equals profit. And each of those components of the formula you can see it as a department in your business. Now, your goal, as we just talked about the transformation process, is to take this process, being aware of it, and intentionally take every department and transform it. You transform yourself, and then you transform every single department going through the same process. So how are you going to take that transformation process and begin transforming the offer department? You're going to start exposing yourself to people who give truth about sales, about marketing, about human psychology, about pricing, about branding. Take your offer department through that process. Exposure, truth, action, understanding. And you know the cool thing? I said I was going to talk about this, but understanding is so cool because understanding not only speeds up the feedback loop, it is a feedback from wisdom from the action. It not only speeds it up, but it actually unlocks principles, patterns, and processes. When you have understanding, truly you start seeing things. It's like the matrix. You're like, whoa, okay. You start doing things with greater purpose in mind because you understand the underlying principles at play, and you understand the patterns that you understand patterns. And you start to notice those things. And so now you start seeing the process to start replicating actions in order to get the results you're looking for. You get expert level right here. Now, how do you get to elite level? As we mentioned, revelation takes that process and it creates it's really the fundamentals of creativity, revelation. Now you begin to start using that understanding in unique ways. You start molding your business model in such a way that it is not common in the marketplace. Instead of choosing to go, you might have the revelation that your business should no longer be charging by the hour. Instead, everything should be value based and fixed priced. Even in even in an industry that traditionally may have charged by the hour. So go through that transformation process and transform the offer department. What about the fulfillment department? You can do the exact same thing. What are you transforming? You can update. Who are you exposing yourself to improve the skill of your delivery of whatever your service is? For me, yesterday I was at a deal makers conference. It was a conference called the Deal Makers Conference, and it was a group of mergers and acquisition professionals. So everybody in that space, if you know what a mergers and acquisition is, that's when you buy and sell business. So anybody involved in that transactions, CPAs, accountants, lawyers, wealth management managers, economists, right? Everyone involved in that process was at this conference, and they were essentially sharing information and uh, sharing information about the environment of M&A. Being in that environment exposed me to new learnings I would have never had the opportunity to engage with. It actually made me so much sharper as a CFO, as a communicator, as a teacher, because now I've exposed myself to new information. You know what? It's not going to get stuck right there. I learned truth, but now I'm going to take action with it. I've developed and improved our evaluation process, our consulting process for the clients that work with us. So now when I say we can secure your profits, it's more durable, your revenue becomes durable. Here are strategies that we can use to scale your business. It's not from an empty well. That just remind me, it's so cool. Whenever you're like going through these frameworks and principles that you get from understanding, new revelations come and new things that you can add into that cycle to take action on come out of it. It actually amplifies the entire process because I think that those who just accumulate, getting stuck in that knowledge place, right? Even if you're the greatest person, you start, not sorry. Those who get stuck in that knowledge step or that knowledge cycle, they accumulate so much. They're actually like a deep well, like a very deep well, but a dry desert on the surface. Imagine a deep well, like you're in the desert and there's a well and it's just It's so deep. It has crystal water. It's the water of life just there, the most amazing water. But all around, there's no life all around it. Literally miles and miles is just desert. That is untapped, unused water, life. That's knowledge getting stuck right there. That's truth getting stuck in that phase because no one is coming to take the bucket and take action because there's someone just says, "Oh, I'm too tired. That's too much work. They're gonna call me a try hard. It's just too much work to do to go and pour the water out and actually grow something." When you see a well with greenery all around it, that's someone who's taking those truths and putting it into action. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And that's what I am doing. Right. And I just want you to come along with me on that journey. How can you transform the management department? I was thinking about how to describe the management department. You know what I talk when I talk about the management department, I talk about it being led by the CFO, right? The ability to manage the excess resources that come from your offer minus your fulfillment. But I started thinking of it even in a more strategic way in that the management department actually is the department that maintains balance across the organization, financial balance. I mean, ultimately, if you know anything about accounting, fundamentally, we keep a balance sheet. Like that actually shows the value of the business. So the management, how are you transforming your management in such a way that it keeps the business in balance? Because how you allocate resources will directly impact the next department, which is the profit department. Well, I skipped over the AI and the HR department, but it's the same thing. Are you exposing yourself to, information that could help and enhance and multiply your efforts in the business, like new technologies and software? Are you exposing yourself to new potential hires and employees and contractors that could elevate your productivity and increase the value of the entire business? It really, all of this transformation stems, your level of transformation, I'll say it, your level of transformation, the extent of transformation you will get is dependent on who and what you're exposed to. That is the fortunate or unfortunate news. So if you're intentional about where you expose yourself to, ultimately your level of revelation that you receive that leads to transformation will be out of this world. Be intentional about your exposure. Now, I said all of this serves that last department, the profit department. The profit department is so unique because its impact affects the business internally and things externally. You have to become a great decision maker. The owner is the leader of the profit department, and the decisions of that owner dictate the impact outside of the organization as well as what might be invested, more resources to be invested into the organization. Profits, depending on how you use your profit, you could impact the world in such a larger way, impact so many different lives, impact your community, impact your family, your relatives, yourself. You can do so much more than the business actually can do in the profit department. So how are you going to transform this department as well? Maybe it's by transforming your mind. What's important to you? What are your priorities? Are you funding? How will you, will you fund your dreams or will you fund other dreams? So the profit department has such a profound impact and I can't overstate it. I cannot overstate it. All right. So that's the transformation process. And like I said, if you apply this, if you first are aware that this is happening and you apply it to strategically to areas in your life and in your business, you can't help but grow. You can't help but become more valuable. So I'm going to challenge you today. I mean, we're headed into the weekend. I'm going to challenge you today to shift what you're exposed to and actually seek after transformation. Walk through the process because your transformation is directly correlated to your profits. It's directly correlated to where your business goes and how it's ultimately going to serve you and serve those out there. Awesome. All right, so we're going to open up the floor for questions. I, it's yeah, we're going to open up the floor for questions. And well, you can see that there's a Zoom. Let me turn that off. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to look into our store of questions. Awesome, awesome. Remember, if you want to come in, if you are part of the owners community or you know me, go ahead and DM me. And you want to join the Zoom link, go ahead and DM me. You can join our live, right? And you can answer or ask any of your questions as they come in. But we have a few questions that were submitted, and we're just gonna walk through some of them and just talk, have a conversation. Cool, cool. All right, so let's hit with this first question from an Elizabeth. How do I know if all the content I'm consuming is actually helping me grow or just keeping me busy? Easy question. If you take survey, if you take survey of the time you've spent listening to content, just do it in one day. A survey of all the content you've consumed in one day, and then write out all the actions that this content actually directly made you helped you take. There's a concept in business about just if you track it, your behaviors actually start shifting. The reason is when you start tracking something, there's something inside of us. I think is like a conviction. You start telling yourself, you start speaking to yourself about whether or not you're doing the right thing or not. But you can get a lot of information simply by tracking it. So I would say, look at the watch hours. Your watch hours quantify the actions that preceded. I mean that yeah proceeded after those watch hours. Maybe that'll give you some information. All right, next question. Next question. Why does my cash flow stay tight even after I've learned how to manage my finances? So this is coming from a Brittany. Why does my cash flow stay tight even after I learned how to manage my finances? Now, there's two answers to that question. Like my first question to your question is, first, have you actually learned how to manage your finances? Oftentimes we can find we can get a lot of information by turning our mirror back to ourselves and seeing, okay, have we done everything possible in our power to actually help our situation? So I'm not accusing you. I'm just simply saying, let's try to look first at ourselves and then figure out, okay, is there any external things that might be happening? So first, have you actually learned how to manage your finances? One of the ways you can determine that is like, okay, I mean, the cash flow is a result. I want you to do percentage checks on your profit and loss statement. So you can look at the top line revenue, then you can look at how much is the cost for your fulfillment and see what that remainder is. That's what we call a gross margin. And then I want you to do a inventory check on all of your expenses. List them out. What is fixed? What are variable costs? Oftentimes, sometimes those fixed costs might be subscriptions. We might be paying for luxury items that we don't actually need, that's actually not contributing to the underlying value of the business. You might have overlapping softwares that perform the same exact thing. You're paying for Microsoft Teams and you're paying for Zoom. You're paying for Google Drive and you're paying for Outlook. Every software has an AI note taker. Everyone wants to have an AI agent. Maybe you're spending in areas that There are overlapping benefits, and you don't need to. The other side of it is, what are the external factors that are weighing on the business? Perhaps your cash flow is tight because your the agreements that you have with your customers. There's your cash flow is the lifeblood of your business, and we're going to talk more about this even next week. But cash, when I say the lifeblood, I mean your cash will make or break anything that you can do in a business. You need cash to do anything. So how you collect cash up front, even from your customers, could could help or sabotage the life of the business. Switching from a net 30, a net 15 to an upfront fee could change the entire dynamic of your business simply because you collected cash up front. Now, there are other ways. There is a strategy that I believe in and I will coach my clients in that when you're thinking about your pricing, there's two things you want to think about. You want to think about you're not you want to understand the fact that you're not pricing for cost, you're pricing for value. That's one. And then two, your goal, one of your goals should be to collect them as much cash upfront to cover your costs and then some. So you want to shorten the time frame on which you collect the cost of whatever you do. So the cost is only driving the upfront fee, but the price is based off of your value. I split it up like that because there are industries that it is inherent most people do not pay the full amount. Perhaps because not perhaps, but it's because it's capital intensive, and so they like to break it up. I mean, I understand that. I still want to work with clients who can pay more upfront. I still want more guaranteed dollars than waiting on dollars. So I have a client. He's in event production, right? And our goal is essentially to they collect deposits. So they have a final of a price, but they collect deposits, right? You want that deposit to be greater than your upfront but then all of your cost. How do I calculate the deposit? What are your costs to run the thing? Put a 10% bump on that just to be a buffer, 10 or 15% buffer on top of your cost. Charge that at least as your deposit. It'd be better if you can collect 100, but at least as your deposit. That's your cost for the entire project. Then once you're talking about, all right, approaching and putting your estimate and putting your price, take away the cost out of your mind. The cost is just the floor. The price is your value. We just talked about the ways that you can become more valuable is if you go through the fulfillment department and even the offer department and you put them through the transformation process, you inherently increase the value of whatever it is that you give. And your value is not comparable to someone else's price. You might get information about what the market will accept, right? What is the market's appetite for a certain price level, but fundamentally you should not be pricing just because another firm is pricing. You don't understand their structure. You don't even understand their profit calculation of how their management department is a little different. So I want you to get that out of your head that I'm pricing for cost. No, your business is going to lag profitably. Its profits are going to lag if you think like that. Did you know that on average it takes about you to have about 10% in profit just to break even, or 5% in profit to break even after taxes? Right. So you need to get that profit up. And the only way you can do that one of the ways you can do that is really start to increase that price, increase your value and start charging for that value. It's not charging high just for the sake of charging high. It's increasing your value, even your perceived value. I mean, if you unlock the power of your offer department, this is sales and marketing, you can unlock perceived value. And then if you unlock the greatness of the fulfillment department, about which is delivering with so much value that it's greater than what your client perceived, man, your business will have basically like infinite dollars if you solve those two part of the equation, right? So that's how I would go about answering that question about like your cash flow. You got to do things intentionally to improve that cash flow, because if cash starts lagging, man, you're going to have such a hard time. Then you're going to start having to rely on debt, loans to scale. Loans are great, but they're also not so great. They amplify everything that's going on in the business. And so you want to make sure that your business works. And how does it work? You have a profitable process or machine that's actually creating cash, generating cash. Once you have that solved, then okay, introduce debt into the mix. If you're having problems where you need debt to just cover some areas, maybe you like cover some seasonal dips in your cash, you can do that too. I would recommend you reevaluate the deposit, as we just mentioned. But, you know, you can have revolving debts that can help you, lines of credit. I have 2 months on starting a project. I don't have enough cash to jumpstart it. All right, maybe you get out debt just to cover those 2 months, and then once the project pays back, you clear that debt. Now, those are strategies that come out of the management department. Thinking of your finances that way tells me whether or not you actually know how to manage your finances. All right, let's go to another question. Let's go to another question. Mm. This question comes from a Miranda, and she says, I keep hiring people, but why does my team still feel disorganized and slow? Oh man. So this is an operations question, clearly, right? Right. I mean, I guess every department has people as a part of your team, but you hire people, but it still feels like your team is disorganized and slow. Man, I know the feeling first and foremost, so I'm empathetic to that. Um, and there's a couple of things that you want to think about, and I would say that um, first, I probably would need a lot more context than this, right? But things that I think about with the team is that one, their roles need to be very focused for the most part, especially when they first come onto your team. There's a mistake that many business owners make, especially in the early stages as you're scaling. This is probably a business owner headed into their first 7 figures or their second next 7 figures, and they're getting accustomed to delegating, taking off all of the hats that they're wearing. Sometimes we try to take off a hat and give it to somebody to wear and think that they're going to essentially build that entire part of the business. All right, we say, "Oh man, we're going to take it off and you're going to just bring all the expertise in and do everything and take this side of the business to the moon." I think that's a misconception a trap that we fall into sometimes, because we don't understand what it is to develop. It's like wishful thinking. We're trying to play the lottery with hires. You don't want to do that. You don't want to play the lottery with hires, because you're gonna put yourself in a vulnerable position to get your expectations shot down. That's just it. Am I saying that you cannot find great people who are entrepreneur, who think ahead, who are critical thinkers? No, I'm not saying that. And I hope that you find that person. But oftentimes when you start hiring, when you start bringing on people, what usually happens is that they need to focus in on very focused job description. Like, okay, this is what you do. And how you come to that focused job description is because you have already done the work in figuring out your process from start to finish. You as the owner who was the first head of the fulfillment department or whatever department, you've thought through the customer experience from the start all the way to the end. When a customer says, "Hey, I'm interested," all the way to leaving you a review, "This is the most amazing experience of our life." You've already thought through that. And so when you're hiring, typically new people come in, you're inserting them into a part of the process that has already been fleshed out mostly to the point where when they come in, they can be once they're caught up to speed in understanding what the process looks like and their role, they can kind of hit the ground running a bit. Their ramp up phase is not a lengthy process. They're able to get in there, know kind of the things that they should be focused on, and how they can get quick, easy wins. Actually, th- if you set up your people like that, you will give them opportunities to make you happy. Like you're giving them the chance to win by doing that. So you got to spend the time on preparing the place that a new hire is going to land. Else, it can cause disorganization. The process can slow down simply because they didn't have a ramp up. They didn't have the training. They didn't have the platform, the place cleaned up for them. Right now, what if now in a cleaned up, let's say you cleaned up that role, the processes, the softwares, the whole management process of whatever role that is, and you happen to find a unicorn, a critical thinker, a blue chip employee. Oh man, they're great. They're great because when you've put them in an environment that they can win in, that type of blue chip or that type of 5-star employee, oh man, they start actually developing parts of your business that you weren't thinking about because first they were able to get those easy wins. The place was clean. They could think, they can do their thing, right? So cleaning up your place solves for two problems. It makes non-lottery pick employees. It gives them a pathway to make you happy and to continue to grow in their value. And then those superstars, they come in and they take you to win the championship. They take your business to the next level. So that's my approach. Clean up that area of that bit of your part of your business because you don't want to bring people into a mess and now no one is in good position to succeed. Even even if you got a blue chip 5-star person in an unruly environment or disorganized environment, they'll grow frustrated. They believe that they come in and they're like, yeah, I saved your business. So I don't want that to be necessarily the testimony that employee holds. So clean up your mess first, and that's what will help your business um, not to feel disorganized or slow. All right. So we got time for a couple more questions. And you all keep them coming. Keep them coming. So, yeah. So, one question. And so this is a broad question. It's how do I stop learning about scaling and actually build a business that doesn't depend 100% on me? So, this is coming from a Brandon. He feels like he needs to stop learning about scaling and actually start scaling that business. So it depends. So it doesn't depend 100% on me. Okay, so that's a great question. That's a very good question because it tells me you're starting to understand that knowledge is not going to take you there. You need to take that next step to to wisdom, to practical application of the truth, right? And then it tells me the other thing. You understand what scaling ultimately is not just ramping up activity, but you as a business owner need to have the ability to replace yourself, where your business is not dependent. Scaling is the scaling to the point of non-dependency. That's the goal. That's one of the major goals. So when your business doesn't depend on you, you can actually have the choice whether to work in it or work out of it and to go on to do other things. So it tells me that you have a purpose behind why you want to scale. So if you already have that, the way that you go from stop learning to actually building that business that scales is so simple. Let me tell you, it's just, you just do it, right? It's, you just do it. Okay, I know that's facetious. That's not that's too simple. But let me tell you this. Rome wasn't built in a day. The way that you chop down a 50-foot tree is by one chop at a time. So the way that you're going to scale your business is through one action at a time. What I've come to know is that the simple thing, the simple thing is the most effective thing. Why do I say that? All of the complex strategies, information that you and I hear and receive and learning that you just said become useless to us if there's no action done by it. We can oftentimes get overwhelmed and paralyzed by hearing all the stuff. And our brains forget to actually just break it down into that bite-sized thing. So a great exercise on scaling is listen to this podcast, listen to these office hours, and then write down 3 things that you can take active and pushing you towards your goal. Your goal is to scale. So you already have the vision. You just need to actually do basic, simple things. One of the things that you can do to scale, basic, simple, is to write SOPs for every repeatable process in your business. SOPs are standard operating procedures. You can write them in physically on paper. You can type them out on Word. You can record videos of you walking through every single process that is repeatable in a business, even the processes that are seemingly not repeatable, because every process is repeatable if you did it. Sometimes we think that when we do a thing, we're the best at it and no one else can actually do it like we can. That's actually false, and that's a facade. I mean, even if you're creative, the difference between you doing a thing and someone else doing it, right? Most of the time, honestly, most of the time, others can replicate the exact same thing that we've done. Most people can't. They just, because they've never actually gone through that process, that mental creative process that you have gone through and you go through on a regular basis. But in order to scale, you need to be able to replicate what it is, whatever that you do. If you cannot do that, then you cannot scale your business. You can't get out because the business is always dependent on you. So what I would say is record all of your processes and procedures. The seemingly harder things to replicate through a simple step-by-step process, I need you to still record it, maybe even watch yourself, have somebody observe you do it, and maybe they can help you list it out into steps, into clear, actionable steps. Maybe they can help you. Because until you actually do that, you won't be able to delegate it to someone else and they won't be able to learn and understand your process. Maybe you are fortunate, like others, maybe you're fortunate and you actually find people who actually can do it better than you. That's another way. How do you scale? Start surrounding yourself with those who are actually better than you in the thing that you think you're so great at. Right? You might bring in talent that's actually further along because maybe you're not a fulfillment type of owner. maybe you're great at the sales, marketing, branding, but you just got into this because you knew that you can sell something, but you're not the best person to deliver on that service. So you partner through employees, or you can partner through a business partner ownership, right? So how do you stop learning about scaling? You start doing it. And then you also start thinking about where are your strengths and your weaknesses so you can plug those areas, plug those weaknesses in your business so it sets the foundation for you to scale. Here's another point that you don't often hear. And I think some people say this, but I really learned it intuitively through um, through a game that I played when I was young. So I played this game. It was on the PC. This game was called RuneScape. Some pronounce it Rune Escape. But have you heard of it? Maybe you've heard of it. It's a I forget what the phrase is, but it's called MMORPG. Let me look that up. That stands for on an online. No, what does it stand for? Oh, massive multiplayer online role playing game. Yes. All right. So in this game, every person who got an account in the game had their own distinct character. They were able to develop skill sets and talents and things for this character. You can learn you can learn how to fight. You can learn, and fighting had categories: defense, strength, attack. You can learn how to shoot arrows. You can learn how to do a whole bunch of different stuff, right? And the more time you spent on developing each skill, the higher the level of that skill is, right? So for physical fighting, it was broken up into these three categories, or the fighting skills. It was broken up into, no, it was broken up into multiple. I said attack, defense, strength, archery. They called it range. And then they had like mage, which is like magic and stuff, right? So everyone in a game with their individual character will go to this place called the wilderness, and they will basically combat each other, fight each other to see who's the strongest, who can fight. They can go to other places and fight these strong monsters and things like that. But why do I bring that up, right? When I was young, I would train up my stats, my fighting stats, all within like the same distance of each other. So if my strength was 40 level 40 strength, my attack was like level 40, and my defense might have been like level 38. They were never within 5 level points of each other. And usually it equated to you being at a certain level. So let's say everything was level 40, attack, strength, defense, and my overall level was like 45. Let's call it that. It was so interesting because I thought my character was so strong. Oh man, I got level 40 everything. I can go and do great things, right? When you go to the wilderness and you meet other people who have different makeup of their stats, there's these type of characters that we called in the game, we called them pures, like Pure, pure. The reason we called them pure is because they would sacrifice certain elements of their stats to max out one of those stats, or maybe, yeah, one of those stats. So I am all even at attack, strength, and defense, all at level 40, and maybe my overall level is level 40. I meet a pure in the fighting arena called the wilderness, and that pure has level 1 defense, level 20 attack, and like level 80 strength. That's like, whoa, why are you so lopsided? You have 80 strength, 20 attack, and 1 defense. Intuitively, I'm like, okay, this person has 1 defense. I'm about to go in and we're gonna fight. Oh yeah, it's an easy win. No brainer. Easy win. Man, when I tell you, when we first start engaged, the fight was over in literally like two hits, two blows. He hit one, I hit one, and then he basically just two hit KO'd me. And that was crazy. I was like, what in the world just went on? His strength was 80. He had one defense, and I still couldn't hit him. And I was like, wow. What I learned from that, even in business, is, and it's even a life skill, is that pure spends more time investing in their strength than they did in their weaknesses. That's really what it was. He spent more time investing in his strength, and because his strength was so far ahead of anything that I developed, he completely blew me out the water when it came to a combat. Like when it came to the arena or the area that we actually were competing against. The funny thing is, even with 80 strength, one defense, and 20 attack, that pure character who had 80 strength, their overall level was lower than mine. They were like level 32. So even what I perceived to be an easy win was actually the most difficult fight I could ever experience, because I thought that balance led to great performance or to scaling your performance. No. So I've come to know that even in real life, it was practice. I practiced it. I saw it happen in the game, even as I was young. And now in real life, I see it happening even more. That means I've started gaining understanding because I started putting it into practice and realizing what are my strengths. Started to invest into my strengths, making my strengths so powerful that your weaknesses are almost irrelevant or ignored or not a large factor in ultimately in your results. Now, does that mean that pure didn't have any other areas that they needed to improve on? No, because if they went into places that they were vulnerable in, then obviously, yeah, they will lose. They want to, because they have no defense, right? So there, when you are in playing in your arena, max out your strength. Match wherever your strengths are to where the arena that you play. And when you invest heavily into your strengths, it actually gives you enough resources to then allocate and scale the other parts of your business. I know that was a long-winded story, but I think that story has truly impacted, what it is, like how I manage my business, how I manage my time, even how I choose which area I want to transform. So that's my challenge for you today. That's how I believe you can stop just learning about scale and actually start implementing and doing things that actually lead to scale. You got to go through the transformation process, and you got to invest deep into your strengths. All right. So that's it for today. I want to thank you all for joining us on these office hours. It was amazing. The questions are riveting. And I'm even learning as I'm sharing. So if you have a friend or somebody that could find this valuable, I want you to share it to them. I want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is the ZFO Insider. We are going to be doing this on a weekly basis, just bringing in people who want to ask questions and just sharing some of the things that I'm learning as I'm scaling my business. If you didn't know, I own a fractional CFO company called Zopia. And we do these things usually on one-on-one basis, but I think it's just so appropriate to share it with the world and share it with any owners who are looking to scale their businesses, right? Are you a project-based business? Are you a service-based business? And you just need the proper nudge to get you over the hump. You're in a transition, but you just need consulting that is not behind a paywall. Then I want you to join us each week on the ZFO Insider. All right. DM me if you want to join us on Zoom, because if you see this box up here, where is it? This box up here. Um, if you join us on Zoom, you can come in live, ask your questions. we'll actually have a conversation. And I think it'll be so valuable to anyone who wants to join in. Or obviously you can hit the chat right there on YouTube or stream. So yeah, again, this is ZFO Insider. Share with somebody. That's my challenge. That's the only ask I ask. Subscribe and share to someone who who you think may find this valuable. And yeah, let's just begin the conversation. All right, Zoe, and we're out.